Welcome here. I'm excited today. We are talking with English Language Arts Council member Kelsey Graham. Kelsey is a teacher in middle school, and she is going to be sharing some information on book talks with middle school kids and a series of books that all middle school kids should read or would have a love of reading for.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. All right, so book talks. I use book talks all the time in my classroom just to get kids interested in books, talking about books, and getting books into their hands. A lot of the times it's very informal, but I do actually have a formal slideshow that I go through as well whenever we have some extra time, or that I can give to a sub as well. So I'm going to share my screen and show you guys what that looks like. So I use this little slideshow, and every time I finish a book, I add to this slideshow, and then we share this around our school with other teachers, with our librarian. We actually put these in our newsletter as well as book recommendations. So I'm going to jump right in and share with you guys some books that are highly loved in my classroom. I teach in a 6 to 8 setting, and these are always off my shelf. So let's get started with No Fixed Address. This is a Canadian book by author Susan Nielsen, and I love this book so much. I recommend it. It's probably my #1 recommended in my classroom. It is about a 12-year-old boy named Felix. He's obsessed with trivia, specifically this game show called Who, What, Where, When. And he is homeless, practically. His mom cannot seem to hold down a job. They get evicted from their most recent apartment, and they are living in their van. So it's a unique look at homelessness that we might not typically see. We typically would picture someone on the street, but living in a van also can be considered homeless. Felix's mom swears him to secrecy, makes sure that he doesn't tell anyone. He can't tell his friends at school because he doesn't want anyone to know, of course. If he does, the mom says that he might be taken away from her and put into foster care. So it's a lot of pressure on Felix. He wins a chance to be on a trivia show, that one I mentioned before, Who, What, Where, When. And he hopes that this might be the chance he has to save his family, because there is a money prize. Some themes in this book: homelessness, poverty, family, friends, identity. Again, most kids love this when they pick it up, and it's a fairly easy read. It's also cool that it's Canadian. It mentions Vancouver is where he lives, so kids often love this one because they can picture the places that they are talking about. So that is No Fixed Address. Next up is Ghost by Jason Reynolds. Frankly, anything by Jason Reynolds I would recommend for your middle school classroom. Ghost is actually part of a series, so I have all 4 of them here: Ghost, Sunny, Patina, and Lou, and it's called the Track series. Ghost is a great one to get kids hooked, though. It starts off pretty intensely. It's about a kid named Ghost. His real name is Castle Crenshaw, and he loves to run. He's obsessed with running, mostly because that's all he's ever known. It started as a kid when his dad chased him and his mom through their apartment and down the street with a loaded gun aiming to kill. Since then, Ghost has been causing problems and running away from them, until he meets this wonderful man named Coach. Coach sees a lot of talent in Ghost and wants him on the track team. Of course, Ghost has been through a lot and wonders if that's something that he could even do, if he's capable of that, and he worries that he may mess this up too. So some topics in this one: poverty, racism, track and field, running, identity. And again, it's part of a series. So we meet Ghost in the first book, and then Patina is next, and they're all on the track team, and they all have their own unique stories. So pretty quick little books, about 150 pages. Kids can fly through this one pretty quick, and they are excellent reads. Snapdragon. I just finished reading this one last month, and I love it so much. It is a graphic novel by Kat Lay, I think that's how you say her name, and it is kind of a magical realism story. So some themes in this one: LGBTQ, identity, witches, and adventure. This is just a very quirky story. You can probably tell even from the cover. It just looks very magical and fun. The main character's name is Snapdragon, and her town has a witch. At least that's what people say. But in reality, this witch, her name is Jax, is a Crocs-wearing, internet-savvy old lady who sells roadkill skeletons online. After she does a ritual to put their spirits to rest, of course. It's kind of creepy, which is why everyone thinks that she's a witch. But Snapdragon actually thinks it's pretty cool that she does this. So Jax and Snap actually start to work together. Jax is teaching her how to raise some baby opossums that Snap had rescued, and Snap helps Jack with her work with the roadkill. As they get to know each other, they realize that there might actually be some real magic, and there is a good connection between Snap's family and Jack's family. There's also a lot of talk about gender identity in this as a very subtle background story, so really inclusive and an excellent read. A Good Kind of Trouble. This one I also just finished reading. Really good for anyone who's interested in exploring more about the Black Lives Matter movement, as it is talked about quite a bit in here. So 12-year-old Shayla is the main character. You can see her on the cover there. And she hates trouble. All she really wants to do is follow the rules. Of course, she also wants to make it through junior high with her best friends, learn how to run track, and she obviously wants a cute boy in her life. She just started junior high, and things seem different to her now that she's there. Her friends are changing, and people are kind of questioning her identity as well. Her sister's involved in Black Lives Matter, but Shay doesn't really think that's for her. However, she does get to experience a protest and decides maybe it is something she wants to explore. So she starts to wear an armband to school in support of the Black Lives Matter movement. Soon her school is divided, and she's given an ultimatum from her principal, actually. She's really scared about doing the wrong thing because we know she doesn't like to break the rules, but she's afraid that if she doesn't do it, there could be worse consequences. This is a really good one for kids just starting junior high because it really talks about that first experience of figuring out your friendships and where you belong. But it also deals a lot with, like I said, the Black Lives Matter movement, community, friendship, those types of themes as well. The Barren Grounds. This one is a hot commodity as well. Again, Canadian. I forgot to put the Canada flag on there. Canadian author David A. Robertson. This is a fantasy novel. You could probably even do this in grades 4 and up. It is about Morgan and Eli, 2 Indigenous children. They are brought together in a foster home in Winnipeg, Manitoba. So again, Canadian book. They each feel disconnected from their culture, and they struggle to fit in at school and at their new home until they find a secret portal. So up in their foster home, they have this unfinished bedroom, and a portal opens to a new reality called ASCII, bringing them onto the frozen barren grounds where they meet Ochek. He welcomes them in, teaches them traditional ways to survive, but ultimately the land they're in is in a constant winter. So they are trying to get food for the people there and trying to end the winter that has come, which the winter appears to have been put on them forever by humans. There is also a hilarious little squirrel, you can see him on the cover there, named Eric. He's very sassy, which makes the story have a little element of humor as well. And they try to save Misawa before the icy grip of winter freezes everything. So lots of great content in this, lots of exploration of Indigenous history as well. Would be a great one for your social studies classroom and for any kid. It's honestly an amazing little novel. Ghost Boys. This one is, again, one that's flying off the shelf and very timely right now. Many kids are interested in learning more about the Black Lives Matter movement. And this one kind of goes back to when these things first started happening. When the Black Lives Matter movement was initiated. So 12-year-old Jerome, he is shot by a police officer who mistakes his toy gun for a real one. This happens right away in the book. Now he's a ghost, and so the book actually alternates between his ghost life and the present world as well. He's watching over what's happened to him, how his family deals with it, how the community deals with it, and even how the cop is dealing with it. He gets to meet another ghost, Emmett Till, so you learn a little bit more about some history there as well. And together the boys explore the history of racism. Jerome also meets Sarah, who is the daughter of the police officer, and helps her to understand what has gone on. This is a really easy read in terms of the content is very difficult. You might have to have some conversations with your students obviously around this, but in terms of readability, it's a lower level read. So most kids could pick it up and read it with no problem. Again, an excellent read for anyone who's interested in exploring Black history, and really easy for someone in a middle school age to read. And on to a funny read. I actually use this as a read aloud at the start of the year in grade 6, just as a way to get the year started in a kind of fun and enjoyable way. And it is part of a series. So once you start this one, kids usually want to read the rest. It is The Terrible Two by Jory John and Mac Barnett. It is honestly hilarious. I laugh a lot when I read this. It's just a lot of sarcasm and humor, and some of it goes over the kids' heads, but most of them they pick up pretty good. So it's about Miles Murphy. He's moving to this little town called Yanni Valley, and Yanni Valley is famous for one thing only, which is cows. You will hear about the cows a lot. There are many cow facts in this book. In his old school, everybody knew him as the town's best prankster, but Miles quickly discovers that Yawning Valley already has a prankster, and it's a pretty good prankster too. So if Miles is going to take the title, he's going to have to raise his game. So they have a prankster war for the beginning until they decide to join forces and become the Terrible Two and pull off the biggest prank ever seen. It is so funny. There's lots of illustrations in it as well, which make it really enjoyable to read. And again, there are 4 books in the series, so this is an excellent one. The crossover. I think this is the first one I've mentioned that's actually a novel in verse. And I find this one is great for middle school because there is less words on the page, which just makes it a little bit more enticing to some kids who are maybe afraid of larger books. And of course, beautiful language as well. So this is by Kwame Alexander. Again, most of his books I'd probably recommend for middle school. And this one's really good. I find a lot of my sports fans love this one because it's all about basketball. It's about 2 twin brothers, Josh and Jordan, and their father, who used to be a famous basketball player. The boys kind of go through, typical brother stuff as well as friend stuff at school. But there is a large tragedy that happens that the boys kind of have to work through and discover what family truly means. Again, beautiful language because it is a novel in verse. So kids get a lot out of this one. It's written really cool. And there is a prequel to this that a lot of kids will pick up after as well. Front Desk by Kelly Yang. You may have heard of this one because it was actually a global read aloud. So the global read aloud was an initiative put on by Pernille Rip, where people across the globe would read the same book. Unfortunately, the movement has ended after this year, but this was the book, I believe, for 2019. So Front Desk by Kelly Yang does have a sequel now as well. We love a sequel. So Mia Tang, she lives in a motel, and her parents are the cleaners, and she manages the front desk at 10 years old. The owner of the motel is really mean and does not pay much for her or her family. Her parents, along the way, try to help out other immigrants without getting caught. She really wants to be a writer, but her parents think she should stick to math because English is not her first language. So very stereotypical kind of views there, but she goes against that. She's a very spunky character and she wants to do everything that her parents think she can't. She has so much courage and is very energetic and spunky and will kind of do whatever it takes to do the right thing. There is a lot of talk about immigration and racism, and it does take place in the United States, but again, really relatable, an easy read with lots of great relevant topics. Kids love this one. I haven't read the sequel yet, but a few kids have and love it as well. Insignificant Events in the Life of a Cactus. Long title, amazing book. This book is by Dusty Bowling. She has a few books, actually. Any of the ones that she's written, I would recommend. My kids cannot stop reading them. This one starts off hilarious. You meet Avon Green, and she has no arms. But what's great about Avon is that she's very funny and sassy, and she loves to tell people that she lost her arms in an alligator wrestling match or a wildfire in Tanzania. She has all these crazy stories that she'll tell people just to shock them, but in reality, she was just born without arms. Her family moves to an old amusement park, and she's starting at a new school, which is really hard for her because she's grown up in her old town where everyone just kind of knew that's who she was. But now she has to start all over as a kid with no arms and a disability, which is very hard for her. She meets this kid named Connor, who has his own unique disability, you will discover, and the two of them discover a mystery at the amusement park that they work to solve together. It's really cool the way the author describes how Avon gets through her life with no arms. She often talks about eating with her feet and all the things she has to do with her feet. The kids who read this are always just amazed at how Avon makes it through life. And it's really cool that there's a mystery involved as well. So there's kind of all types of things that kids can get into in this one. And it's a great one about middle school and overcoming challenges as well. George. George is an amazing book by Alex Gino. Alex Gino has actually written quite a few books that I would recommend for middle school, so definitely check them out. This one is about George, and when people look at George, they think they see a boy, but she knows deep down that she is not a boy, she is a girl. And George thinks she's going to have to keep that a secret forever because she doesn't think anyone would understand what she's going through, even though she's kind of looked into what it means to be transgender and she knows that it is real. She's really struggling with how she's going to deal with that. She's in grade 4, by the way. Her teacher announces that they're going to do Charlotte's Web, and George really, really, really wants to play Charlotte. But the teacher says, no, because you're a boy, you can't do that. This is a really, again, amazing LGBTQ novel. The kids I know that have read this have really enjoyed it and learned a lot too. Skip forward to this one, When Stars Are Scattered. This is another graphic novel written by Victoria Jameson and Omar Mohammed. And it is about Omar's real life experience in a refugee camp in Kenya. Life is really hard there for him, never enough food, extremely boring, and no medical care for his brother who had severe medical needs. And Omar gets the chance to go to school. He knows this could change his future, but it also means he has to leave his brother every day. So he has to struggle with what he needs in his life, and if that's the choice he should make to go forward and go to school, or if he should just stay in the camp with his brother. It is based on a true story. You can hear about his real life story at the end of the novel. Beautifully illustrated as well. Just a phenomenal book. Maybe He Just Likes You by Barbara D. This is a really good one. Again, for any kid in middle school, I find a lot of girls tend to gravitate towards this one, but it would be great for anyone to read. It's about a girl in grade 7, and she's been getting a lot of weird comments from boys in her grade, hugs and smirks and just things that make her feel kind of uncomfortable. And she feels weird about it, but her friends think she's just being immature, that's what boys do, and that she needs to just be quiet about it. But it keeps happening even though she's saying no. So she takes a karate class and starts to gain a little bit more self-confidence, and eventually decides that it's time to stand up and that these things are not okay. And she gets some help from some people in her life. This is a really good one to teach things like consent. Talks about friendship, crushes, that type of thing. But consent, I would say, is the big one that this one talks about, and is really excellent for approaching that subject in middle school. Miscalculations by Stacey McNulty. This one is so funny as well. It is about a girl who was struck by lightning, and this zap gave her genius level math skills. And so because she's so smart, she just got to stay home and be homeschooled. But now at 12, her grandma says, you know, you could go to college, but you should probably try middle school first. So she heads to middle school, which is absolutely terrifying as someone who has never been. She does make some friends along the way and encounters some mean kids and discovers that maybe it's okay to be a little bit different than anyone else. This has another little topic in it of rescue animals. They do a little rescue project as well. So I tend to give this one to any kids who are really into animals as well. That gives them some other insight into different people and different things that people go through. Lifeboat 12. So this is another inverse novel based on a true story, and it is historical fiction. So this hits a lot of good points for kids. They love historical fiction, and they love the inverse because it's a little bit shorter. Talks about World War II. It's based on the true story of 13-year-old Ken. He gets to board a ship to Canada with other children seeking safety from World War II. And it's great. The ship is luxurious. Everything's going amazing until their boat gets torpedoed. So they all scramble onto Lifeboat 12. And the rest of the story is these boys on Lifeboat 12 trying to survive life on the ocean. Really good. Lots of adventure and action. Also has a ton of information at the end about the true story and the people who were on that boat. All right, so Chirp by Kate Messner is a realistic fiction novel about a girl in 7th grade who moves to Vermont. She is recovering from a broken arm that she got from falling off a balance beam. She's really into gymnastics. She packed all her stuff up, and in those packing boxes, she packed a secret as well, something that happened to her in her past town with her gymnastics coach. So she's got a change in scenery. She's going to day camp. She's got new friends and time with her grandma. And her grandma owns a cricket farm, which is just a quirky little element of this book. But grandma is convinced that someone is trying to destroy her cricket farm. Is it really sabotage, or is grandma's thinking impaired from the stroke she had a few months ago? So there's kind of some people aren't believing grandma that someone might be sabotaging her farm. So Mia and her friends set out to investigate. So it's a little mystery as well. But will they uncover the truth in time to save grandma's farm? And along the way, is Mia going to find the power in herself to share the secret that she's been hiding? Again, this book is really good for talking about things like consent and making sure that you have an adult in your life to talk about. It does deal a lot with the feelings of moving away, making new friends. And of course, we have the excellent mystery of who is sabotaging the cricket farm. So it's quirky, but again, deals with some really great topics as well. Hello Universe by Erin Entrada Kelly. This book is, again, a little quirky, but so fun and a great adventure. So it's about a boy named Virgil, and he is shy and kind, but his family is the opposite. They're loud, they're boisterous, they're crazy, and he feels completely out of place there. He doesn't really have a lot of friends either. There's another character, Valencia Somerset. She is deaf, but she's super smart, brave, outspoken. But again, she's also kind of lonely in her life. There is another girl named Kaori. She is a self-proclaimed psychic. So she goes around and tells kids, she can read their future and all types of things like that. And she has a little sister, Jen, who's always following her around. You can see all those characters on the cover of the book. Finally, there's a character named Chet. He is a huge bully. He wishes all these weirdos would just act normal so that he could focus on his basketball life. None of these kids are friends. They're all completely different. Until Chet pulls a terrible prank on Virgil that traps him and his guinea pig at the bottom of a well, which you can see on the cover there. This terrible disaster leads the other characters on an epic quest to find Virgil. Along the way, of course, they learn a lot about themselves and each other. It's a great book for showing diversity. And then last one I'll talk about is The War That Saved My Life. This book is really great for talking about voice in a character. So it's about 10-year-old Ada, and she has never left her one-room apartment because she was born with clubfoot. And at the time, her mother said that didn't know that could be fixed and thought that she was doomed. So her mom actually keeps her in a cupboard and is so humiliated by her, she will never let her leave the house. But it's the middle of the war, and her little brother Jamie is about to be shipped out of London to escape. So Ada sneaks out to join him, even though she has never left the house before. So it's quite the journey. It's all told from her point of view. So you get to hear her experiencing the world as someone who's never left their home before. It can be a little confusing for the reader at times because you have to figure out what she's talking about. They're taken in by a wonderful woman named Susan Smith, and she gets to learn how to ride a horse, learns to read. She even has a little stint of watching for German spies, and she slowly begins to trust Susan, and Susan begins to love these two kids. But there's still the issue of the mother, if she wants them back or not, if she can help them get her clubfoot fixed. Their constant anxiety if they're going to be back with their cruel mother. At some point, Susan does suggest that they can get her foot fixed, but it has to come down to consent from the mother. This one, again, does have a sequel of what happens to her after. A lot of kids love this one who love historical fiction, but even kids who are just really into horses or anxiety, they want to learn more about mental health, this would be a great one.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kelsey. These are amazing. And in watching, I know that our viewers couldn't see this, but I saw that the books you have or you shared with us are only a small fraction of the books that you have already built in that PowerPoint. Are you willing to share that a link to that PowerPoint so viewers can have access and be able to share those books with their students?
Of course, yes, no problem.
Awesome, great. So then I will make sure that that gets in the description as well for people. And I was just wondering, before we close up here, Kelsey, could you just share in 30 seconds or less, how do you do book talks in your classroom? What does that look like in your classroom when you're doing those?
Sure. So at the start of the year is when I do most of my book talk because I really want kids to be aware of what's in my classroom library, the school library, etc. So I would take time at the beginning of my lesson, usually start of the day, hey guys, let's check out a couple books that I've read recently or that might be interesting to you. I'd go through the slideshow, pick a couple that I've noticed are maybe still on my shelf that kids haven't picked up yet. That way I can just quickly grab them and say, it's still here, who wants it right now? And pass it off to someone right away. I also use them a lot if we finish class a little bit early, or if kids are having snack right now, then I'll do a book talk during that time. And kids love it. They love to hear about the different books. They all keep a little journal of what they want next, so then they can go through and be like, oh yeah, she talked about that one. And having the covers up and everything really helps them as well to know what it looks like, and they can remember that visual in their mind. Mostly it's just to get books into their hands, help every kid find a book that they can connect with and love.
That is so awesome. Thank you, Kelsey, so much. This is so exciting. If you are a teacher watching this and you are passionate about language arts teaching, whatever grade you're at, I would highly encourage you to connect with our English Language Arts Specialist Council in the ATA. You can do that. That link will be in the comments as well, or in the description as well, so you can see how to join ELAC and how you can become part of this amazing group of teachers who who are passionate about literacy. I had a conversation with Kelsey a little while before, and she said one of her favorite parts is at their ELAC meetings. Oftentimes it is this. It's a discussion of what books have you read and what books can I bring into my classroom. And so becoming a member of ELAC would get you access to their publications. They got journals and newsletters that come out and that give you all sorts of lists of books. So we'd love for you to join them and be able to be part of this great group if you're an Alberta teacher. Now, as we close, the one last thing that we'd ask of you is, what books are missing? What books have you read that you would love other teachers of middle school students, so even grade 4 through 9 students, to be able to share with their kids? So if you've got books that we haven't talked about here that aren't on Kelsey's PowerPoint presentation or her slideshow presentation, throw those in the comments as well. We'd love to keep reading and be able to expand on this list for teachers across Alberta. Kelsey, thank you again for sharing your expertise with us. It's been a great couple minutes or half an hour here with you, and hopefully we'll do it again.
Awesome. Thank you so much.